the way that they teach the LSAT and they explain it is incredibly helpful. They break it down, even just the process of applying to law school and some of the different nuances that you may not know if you don't have someone who went through this process or a family member who's gone through it. So they were my biggest resource in terms of preparing myself just for this journey in general. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, or for those of you that are new here, my name's Tasha. Thank you for joining us, and today's video is going to be all about how I lost brain cells and IQ points when I had a child, and I don't know that I will ever recover. Okay, so while that is technically true, today's video is actually going to be about studying for the LSAT, what my timeline was, and ultimately what my score ended up being. So, truth be told, I started studying for the LSAT back in 2015. I was in my final year of undergrad. I was going to Texas A&M in Corpus Christi, and my major was economics, and things were going really well. I had a really great GPA. I was set to graduate with honors, and so I started studying for the LSAT around January or February of that year. Of course, I started with Power Score like most of us do, and I took a diagnostic and I got a 158. So I felt like I was off to a really great start. I want to say I started with logical reasoning because between that and logic games, those were my weakest points. Reading comprehension, I was pretty okay in to start with. And yeah, things were going well, and then spring break happened and I got pregnant. Now, my plan was to still take my LSAT because your score is good for 5 years, and I figured I'd go back to school maybe in about a year or so. That did not happen. My pregnancy ended up being something out of a horror movie. I lost 30 pounds. I was in and out of the hospital. At one point, they wanted to put like a pump in my stomach to help me get fluids and medicines. It was horrific. So, needless to say, my July LSAT was canceled, and I ended up pushing school off just for a little bit. I needed to kind of get things together. Now, there are a lot of reasons that I ended up deciding to put off law school until my son was older and in school. I'll address those in another video, but fast forward 5 years, my son is in school full time, and here we are. So in the fall semester, we were still kind of getting our footing. Separation anxiety luckily was not horrible, and so we had a really good time. In the spring was when I planned to start studying for the LSAT, and of course, Corona happened. And I was working from home, doing Zoom school from home. We were figuring it out. So yeah, studying again got pushed back until maybe around May or so. We had been about 3 or 4 months into quarantine, and I felt like things had kind of settled to where I could kind of focus on me a little bit. So I started studying for my LSAT in May of this year, 2020. Of course, when I started studying, I went back to old and trusted Power Score. I actually couldn't find the books that I had started with in 2015, so I ordered and bought a bunch more. And then I found them, so now I've got duplicates of a few, but that's okay. I started studying with them for about 2 months, and I was pretty consistent about studying. I made myself a weekly schedule, not so much a specific daily schedule. I did have one, but what I mean was I had an amount of pages and of information that I wanted to make sure that I could cover in a week's span. So one day I might get 10 pages done, the next day I might get 30 or 40 pages done. So I didn't want to tie myself down with a specific number of pages a day because, again, I was working from home, I had a kid who was doing Zoom school, things were really hectic, so I made myself a weekly target and I just needed to make sure that I hit that. So this is what that schedule looked like, and as you guys can see, it's just broken down by week. I had different Power Score books that I had purchased, and I wanted to make sure that I got through all of them in the time that it would take for me to take my LSAT. Now, if you guys look, the schedule is made for 24 weeks, And I did that because I was originally planning to take my November LSAT to apply to law school. But after a lot of research, I realized that that wasn't going to be the best choice for me. And I wanted to speed up that timeline, and I wanted to take my LSAT in August and October. Those were the two LSATs that I took and that I prepared for. So studying with PowerScore, I definitely did see my score go up a little bit. I had taken a diagnostic in May again because it's been 5 years, and I got a 153. I was a little bit disappointed with the score drop, but it's completely understandable. I've been out of school for 5 years. My brain is filled with octonauts and zoophonics and customer scheduling and payroll information. So I'm not surprised that it dropped a little bit. That just meant that I had a little bit more work to do. And PowerScore, even though it helped me get back up to, I'd say I was around like a 158-ish, 159 after about 2 months, I just didn't feel that I was progressing as quickly as quickly as I wanted to. Now, a lot of people did recommend 7-Sage, and so I tried that out. I didn't try it for too long. I did it maybe for about 3 weeks or so, and for some reason it just didn't feel like a good fit for me. During this time that I was trying to figure out what worked for me, I was listening to podcasts, to LSAT Podcasts, just to help myself out. I wanted to constantly just kind of have that in the back of my mind, listening to tips and tricks and suggestions. And the one that I found that I cannot thank them enough was Thinking LSAT Podcast. Okay guys, I really love them, so I just have to tell you a little bit about them. But the Thinking LSAT Podcast, the hosts' name are Ben and Nathan. And they're both LSAT tutors, but they've had experience for well over a decade. And the way that they teach the LSAT and they explain it is incredibly helpful. They break it down, even just the process of applying to law school and some of the different nuances that you may not know if you don't have someone who went through this process or a family member who's gone through it. So they were my biggest resource in terms of preparing myself just for this journey in general. They developed a site called LSATdemon.com, and I'll go ahead and paste that in the link below, but that was my holy grail. And the reason I really loved it, a bunch of reasons, but I guess to start off with, it was online. And so I had access to study anytime, anywhere, on any device, and it was simple. It was really easy. I did the 7-day free trial because I had to see if I liked it, of course, and I did. So of all the different features, I guess starting with smallest to biggest, one of the things that they have is drilling, and all that means is one question at a time. That's it. So if I'm making dinner and I've got 7 minutes left, I can go ahead and maybe I can do 5 questions. If I'm, in the car and we're driving somewhere and, we've got a 10-minute ride, I can be on my phone doing a couple questions. Not if I'm driving, guys, if I'm in the passenger seat. Calm down. But yeah, it was just so simple, so easy. I could just do a few questions at a time and I could fit them in. Also, they let you do the test by sections. So I will go ahead and get to my daily schedule soon, but I didn't always have time to do an entire test. So if I had 30 minutes, as you guys know, one section of the LSAT is 35 minutes. And so if I had that time, I could do one section. I can do it timed. I can still score myself, but it gave me the option to split studying into chunks that I could easily fit into my schedule. And so that was incredibly helpful for me. Another thing, this is the best part. I don't know why I didn't mention this first. Okay, so the one thing that I really like about them is that the entire thing is tailored to you specifically. So when you first get on there and you're just drilling, you're just answering questions, you're just going through, you'll notice that the questions tend to be a little bit easier. And that's just because they're gauging where you are in the process and what you know and what you need to learn. So to use myself as an example, when it comes to logical reasoning, I was really good with strength and questions, but I struggled with parallel reasoning questions. And so after I did so many, I started to notice I would be getting harder strength and questions, let's say on a scale of 1 to 5, maybe 3, 4, and 5 for strength and questions. But on parallel reasoning, I was still doing like level 1 and 2 questions. And that was okay for me because I needed to learn that. And so I needed to understand the basics, level 1 and level 2, before I would even start to comprehend anything harder than that. So the fact that this site was able to tailor the learning to what I needed, it blew my mind. I hands down, it won me over. And also, if I was having a day where I wanted to maybe focus on one specific question type, like I had an afternoon, we were at my grandmother's house. She was like, oh, go in the room and study for a little bit. I want to hang out with my great-grandson. I was like, you don't have to tell me twice. I went in and I switched the settings to just do parallel reasoning, and I just banged that out for an hour. And after every single question that you answer, and I mean literally every single question, there is an explanation. Not just of, oh, option A is correct because blah, 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 blah. No. They break it down to you like option A is right because of this, 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 and this. If you refer back to here, this is how you figure out that that's right. And my biggest problem was that I always ended up stuck between two options. So maybe A and C looked right to me, or B and D, whatever the two letters were. And so you would literally read on the explanation, and they would say something like, if you got this one, here's why you probably thought this one was right, but here, let me break down to you exactly why that's wrong. That was the most helpful thing in the world, because I needed to understand why that other option was wrong. You can tell me that A is right, and after you explain it, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. But when I'm taking the test on my own and I'm stuck between two choices, I need to be able to figure out, why is this one wrong? And explain it to me in a way that I can understand. I could go on for days about these guys. They're amazing. Ben and Nathan, LSATdemon.com, Thinking LSAT Podcast. Check them out. You will not be disappointed. By the way, guys, this video is not at all sponsored, but hey, Ben, Nathan, hit me up if you're interested. Okay, so when I started studying with LSAT Demon, I started seeing a huge difference in my score, and I was regularly scoring about a 172. I got maybe 4 or 5 of them in a row. So I was ready. I was feeling prepared. I thought I was going to go into this LSAT and knock it out of the park. In terms of my daily schedule, again, it wasn't always crisp and clean like the one that I'm going to show you guys. Working from home and doing school from home, things got hectic more often than not. A lot of times I might have to go, run errands or do things for work, and my son would be in the car with me with his tablet, and his teacher would be teaching him in the car. And I am so blessed that she is so amazing, but we made it work. And so luckily I had that option to be flexible, but again, not everybody does, so your schedule might look a little bit different from mine. This I had posted on the wall of my home just to kind of remind me to stick to it. I don't know that it was ever this beautiful, but ideally this is what our day would look like. Now, as you guys can see, I have some time allotted early in the morning to do some studying before my son woke up. I am not a morning person, and so I only did that maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks. I mean, more power to you if you can. I know it's probably incredibly helpful, but that did not happen very often. I still put it on my schedule, but I did not always do that. Now, my biggest chunk of study time during the day was when he was taking a nap. I don't know about you guys, but it's really hard for me to concentrate with a child screaming in the background, and he has no inside voice, and so everything he says is a scream. So I did have to kind of get it in where I could fit it in, and his nap time was the easiest time for me to carve out to study. Now, I did not do a full test every day. I hope you guys don't either. That'll really burn you out. But what I did do is I made sure to go through at least 1 or 2 sections a day. I did drilling. I would also review questions that I got wrong earlier in the day or the evening before. And I made sure to really sit down and understand why I got them wrong. Sometimes, just for me personally, it might not be like this for everyone, but it's easier for me to figure out a wrong answer than to always just automatically assume that I can figure out the right answer. Sometimes it can be kind of tricky for me. And so really understanding why the wrong question is wrong helped me narrow down the right answer. Now, I'm a night owl. I don't know if any of you guys are, but I originally thought that once my son went to sleep, that would be a great time for me to maybe do a test once a week and to sit down and do drilling. But what I would find is that my answers were wrong. I was doing terribly. And before going back to the correct answers, before checking anything, I would look at it again the next day and I'd get a much higher score. And so what I realized, and I don't know if this is true for everyone, but maybe my brain is just exhausted by the end of the day. Maybe I've used up whatever few good brain cells I have left. And so I stopped trying to study at night because it wasn't efficient. I wasn't learning the way that I needed to, and it was just a waste of time. And I switched to either reviewing, again, the answers that I had gotten wrong or questions that I struggled with earlier in the day to figure out why I was struggling or what it was that was tripping me up, or I would just go to sleep. Honestly, I'm much more productive on a full night's sleep. Mommies, is it just me, or did you guys feel like you lost brain cells when you had a child? I'm just in general, my hearing is worse, my eyesight is worse. I feel like he sucked all the good brain cells out of me, and I have like 2 left that are struggling to survive. Just me? Maybe? Okay. Now, that being said, again, I was scoring regularly around a 172 with LSAT Demon, and this was by the end of July. So I felt ready to go take this test. Again, like I said, I thought I was going to go in there, I was going to kick butt, take names, walk out, and I was ecstatic. I was ready. I have never been diagnosed with any kind of test anxiety. If anything, it's always been the exact opposite. I was a huge nerd in college. I sat in the front row. I had the color-coded notes. If someone missed class, they came to me for notes. They came to me for study guides. So I love test day. And so when I went to take my LSAT, I was confident until I sat down, and I don't know what happened, guys, but I choked. It was terrible. I second-guessed every answer that I put down. I reread every question multiple times to make sure that I understood it, that I didn't miss, one of those little unless or something like that. I bombed, and I ended up getting a 166. I know that's a good score, but again, for me, scoring consistently in a 172, I was really disappointed. I cried really hard. My family was really amazing and supportive, and I knew that I had already signed up to take the October LSAT, so I just kept telling myself it was a bad case of nerves, and at the second opportunity, I was just going to go in and I was going to really show them what I was made of. That didn't happen. I choked again. I don't know what it was. Poor proctor is probably like, why is she sweating like that? But I just was freaking out. And there was nothing for me to freak out about. It was all mental. I still don't know what caused it. I couldn't tell you. But I just know I walked out of there praying, begging. I was like, God, please don't let me get lower than what I got the first time. Like, just please let me get at least the same score, if not better. Like, please. And I ended up with a 167. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that this is a really, really amazing score. I am proud of myself. I would be lying if I said that I wasn't. I know that that's, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say it's within like the 94th to 95th percentile or something like that. So I'm not diminishing my my accomplishment at all. I just know that I was really disappointed for a while because I felt that I wasn't able to show the schools what I was really capable of. I can't send them an email and say, hey guys, you know, I'm scoring way higher than that consistently. I don't know what happened. You know, as far as addendums, which I'm going to talk about in another video when I talk about applying to law school, they don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that you just choked. That's not a good quality for someone they're looking for to be a lawyer. And so I had no way to explain it. The schools look at you on paper. And so it was a really disappointing moment for me. And I don't say this to scare anybody. It's a reality that I faced, and I can't imagine I'm the only person who will ever go through that. And so it's something to keep in mind and just prepare yourself for. Maybe take more tests with someone watching you. I'm not sure because I took a lot of time to test. It wasn't the timing. I to this day don't know exactly what it was. I don't know how to help you prevent it. If I could, I would, I promise. But just something to keep in mind, definitely. So when I did find out this score, I kind of teeter-tottered and I was trying to figure out if I wanted to take my LSAT again and try to overcome that anxiety and figure out what went wrong. But by this point, I had taken the October LSAT, which was the first week of October 2020, and I got my score the third week of October, so about a week before Halloween. It was too late for me to register for the November LSAT, and I knew that I didn't want to take an LSAT later than that. Again, I will talk about all of the reasons why when I talk about the best timeline for applying to law school and why that's so important and what a difference maker it can be to apply on time. But I didn't want to take a later LSAT and apply later. And so I did make the decision to go ahead and apply to law school with my score as is. We will talk more about that in my very next video. But I want to thank you guys for joining me today. If you have any questions that I didn't address in this video or anything that I didn't touch on, please don't hesitate. Pop that right in the comments below. Or information that you'd like to see me do a video on. I'd absolutely love any recommendations that you guys have. Again, as I said before, I really want this channel to be interactive. I want it to be a place where we can all connect and find someone to relate to. So don't hesitate to reach out. Also, please don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. I plan on doing a video every week. And again, next week's video is going to be addressing the best timeline to apply to law school. As always, stay focused, stay healthy, and stay blessed, guys.